My son has a sense of justice so sharp it could cut you. When Mrs. Gable, our neighbor, dropped a curse word in the neighborhood Facebook group, my son reported her to her employer. The next day, she lost the commendation for excellence she was up for. When a kid from the third floor tossed a paper airplane out his window, my son delivered him to the police station 3 days later, complete with security footage. The boy's parents were fined, and he got a stern lecture. I tried to rein him in, my anger simmering just beneath the surface, but he'd just jut out his chin and argue back. Mom, the rules are absolute. Justice doesn't take a day off. Even if you were the one breaking the rules, he'd say, I would choose justice over family. His words became reality when I brought home some pastries from work that were about to expire. My son created a 65-slide presentation, sent it to my boss, and got me suspended. As he was dialing 911, he tried to comfort me. Mom, you just need to do your time and learn the rules. I'll be waiting for you when you get home. It was then I finally understood my son was passing his righteous judgment on every sinner he saw. Anyone who failed to meet his standards. But what he didn't know was that I had found him abandoned under a bridge. And I never filed a single piece of legal paperwork to make him mine. The police car arrived while I was still sitting on the couch staring blankly at the suspension. Noticed the flashing red and blue lights pulse through the window, painting my face in shifting, silent strokes. Ethan opened the door. He stood ramrod straight, like a soldier at attention. Officers, that's her. She embezzled company property. He pointed at me, his voice clear and unwavering. I looked at him. This boy I had raised for 18 years. His eyes glittered with a light that was almost fanatical. It was the fire of justice. 2 officers stepped inside, their expressions a little strained. Ma'am, Lynn Miller. You'll have to come with us. Ethan followed them, adding more details. Officers, here's the evidence I've compiled. It includes security footage of her taking the pastries, the company policy against taking expired food, and a recording of her admitting to it. He handed them a flash drive, his presentation neat and orderly. I was taken away. As I walked out of our home, neighbors peeked out from their doors, pointing and whispering. Their murmurs felt like needles pricking my back. Look, that's her. The one whose son turned her in. I heard she stole from her company. What a disgrace. I kept my head down and got into the police car. I was at the station for 3 hours. Finally, my boss called the police and explained it was all a misunderstanding. The pastries were about to be thrown out anyway. And the company had intended to give them to employees as a small perk. They wouldn't press charges, choosing to handle it internally. They let me go. The night air was cold as I stepped out of the police station. I called my boss to apologize. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally he said, Lynn, just take some time off. We'll be in touch. I understood. It was a gentle way of firing me. I dragged my exhausted body home. The door was unlocked. When I pushed it open, the acrid smell of disinfectant hit me like a wall. In the living room, all of my things, the throw pillows, my favorite teacup, a few magazines I was reading were piled into a large black trash bag by the door. Ethan was wearing rubber gloves, meticulously wiping down the handle of my bedroom door. You're back, he said calmly. I disinfected the house. I've disposed of anything that didn't meet sanitation standards. I rushed over and tore open the trash bag. Inside was the mug I'd used for 10 years. Souvenir I bought him on a business trip. And an old photo album my mother had left me. Ethan. I screamed his name for the first time. What gives you the right to throw away my things? He pulled off his gloves. His brow furrowed. These items were either breeding grounds for germs or useless clutter. According to Article 4 of the Household Management Bylaws, they should have been cleared out long ago. What damn bylaws? I was trembling with rage. I wrote them myself, he said, picking up a stack of printed papers from the table, to make our home more orderly and efficient. You violated Article 17, arbitrary accumulation of clutter. I stared at his face, flushed with righteous excitement, and the world began to spin. I hadn't raised a son. I had created a cold, unfeeling machine that only executed rules. The next day, I went to the bank to withdraw some cash, planning to get away for a few days to clear my head. The teller informed me that my account had been frozen. I just stood there, my mind a complete blank. Why? Ma'am, we received a notice from the IRS to freeze the account. They said you're under investigation for potential tax evasion. The IRS? A roar filled my ears, and I immediately knew it was Ethan. I have a small hobby. I make and sell handmade jewelry online. It never made much money, just a little something on the side. I'd never even thought about reporting it for taxes. The notebook where I kept my accounts was in my bedside table drawer. I ran home like a madwoman. Ethan was in the living room, reading a book titled Foundations of Law. The sunlight fell on him, making him look so clean, so pure. I stormed up to him, my voice shaking my bank account. Was this you? He looked up and adjusted his glasses. Mom, paying taxes is the civic duty of every citizen. Last July your online store had a special edition piece that sold very well. Your income for that month exceeded the $500 threshold for exemption. You were supposed to declare and pay $8.50 in income tax for that month. But you didn't. I simply reported this fact to the IRS. It's up to them to decide. For 8 o'clock. 50. I was practically freaking. You reported me for $8.50? It's not about the amount. Closed his book, his gaze as calm as still water. It's about the principle. You broke a rule. Even for a penny, it's still a stain on your record. His tone was so casual, as if he were discussing what to have for dinner. Do you have any idea what that money means to me? I screamed. It's how we live. It's your college tuition. Then you should have made sure to earn it legally. He was completely unfazed. Mom, don't let money warp your sense of right and wrong. I stared at him, my heart clenching with a pain so sharp it took my breath away. Just then my phone rang. It was my brother, David. The moment I answered, his furious roar erupted from the speaker. Lynn, what the hell have you been teaching that kid? That little bastard. He reported me my brother's daughter. My niece had a sudden violent stomach flu in the middle of the night. In a panic, David had gotten verbal permission from his boss to use a company car to rush her to the emergency room. It was a one-time thing, an emergency. My boss even approved it and said we could sort out the paperwork later. David yelled. He took pictures, didn't even say a word to me. He just sent a report straight to the ethics committee accusing me of misusing company property and embezzling state assets. I'm suspended pending an investigation. Are you happy now? I clutched the phone, my hands and feet turning to ice. David, I'm so sorry. Don't you dare say sorry to me. You need to control that son of yours who turned on his own family. He slammed the phone down. I looked at Ethan. There wasn't a flicker of guilt on his face. Uncle David did something wrong. He should face the consequences. That's your uncle before the law, he said. There are no relatives. He finished speaking, looked down and went back to his book as if we had been discussing a new story about strangers. My entire world was being systematically dismantled by him. One of his so-called rules at a time. The story spread like wildfire. I became a neighborhood celebrity. The foolish woman who got caught stealing from her company and raised a son with no loyalty to anyone. Neighbors who used to greet me warmly now crossed the street to avoid me. Their eyes filled with contempt and a cruel sort of pity. My online shop for handmade jewelry was permanently shut down by the platform for suspected regulatory violations. My only source of income was gone. I locked myself in my room, too afraid to go outside. I tried to reason with Ethan. I pulled out our old photo albums, pointing to our smiling faces. Ethan, remember this? This was our trip to the ocean. It was the first time you saw it. You were so happy you couldn't stop jumping. Look at this one. You had a high fever, and I carried you on my back for 3 blocks to get to the hospital. You hugged my neck and told me I was your superhero. I thought these warm memories might awaken some sliver of affection in him. But he just pushed the album away, his expression cold. Mom, don't use emotional appeals to distract from the issue. We are discussing the mistakes you've made, not the past. Appealing to emotion is the lowest form of debate tactic. His words were a razor-sharp knife, severing my last thread of hope. He even taped a code of conduct for household members to our front door. It listed dozens of rules. Absolute silence must be maintained after 10:30 p.m. All trash must be sorted and taken out by 8 o'clock p.m. Daily consumption of snacks in the living room is forbidden outside of mealtimes. Beneath each rule was a corresponding demerit system. Under my name, there was already a long list of violations. November 12th, failed to take out the trash on time, 2 points. November 13th, ate an apple while watching television in the living room, 5 points. November 14th, shower exceeded 15 minutes, wasting water resources, 3 points. Looking at that piece of paper, I didn't feel like I was living in a home. I felt like I was living in a prison managed by my own son. And I was the only inmate. I started having insomnia, lying awake night after night. When I closed my eyes, all I could see were the scornful looks from my neighbors, my brother's furious shouting, and Ethan's perpetually correct, ice-cold eyes. I lost weight rapidly. Within 2 weeks, I was a ghost of my former self. One night, I got up for a drink of water and saw a crack of light under Ethan's door. He was awake, staring at his computer. On the screen was his 65-slide presentation. He was still perfecting it. Under the section titled Evidence of the Mother's Transgressions, he had added a new entry. Subject exhibits poor moral character. Has engaged in tax evasion and attempts to use emotional attachment as a shield to evade responsibility. In that moment, staring at the blue light of his computer screen, something inside me didn't just break, it calcified. Subject. I whispered. Not Mom. Subject. I retreated to my room. But the house was no longer a sanctuary. It was a panopticon. Over the next week, Ethan escalated his reign of terror. He installed cameras in the hallway and the kitchen, claiming they were for liability purposes and to monitor resource consumption. I watched him one evening as he weighed my dinner portions on a digital scale. According to your BMI and activity level, you require exactly 1,400 calories, he stated, scraping a spoonful of rice off my plate and into the bin. Anything more is gluttony, which is a waste of global resources. Ethan, I said, my voice hollow. I paid for that rice. And I am managing the inventory. he replied without looking up. Management supersedes ownership when the owner is incompetent. He was 18 years old. Technically an adult, yet he had no job, no friends, and no life outside of dismantling mine. He spent his days scouring local bylaws, HOA regulations, and state statutes. He reported the mailman for parking 2 inches too close to a hydrant, resulting in a towed truck. He reported a local bakery for a signage violation, resulting in a $2,000 fine. But his favorite target remained me. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I had been applying for jobs online, desperate to find an income source that he couldn't freeze. I had an interview scheduled for a receptionist position. When I woke up, my door was locked from the outside. I pounded on the wood. "Ethan, let me out. I have an interview." His voice came from the other side, calm and muffled. "I reviewed the company's environmental impact report, mother. They have 3 citations for improper waste disposal in the last 5 years. Working for them would make you an accessory to environmental negligence. I cannot allow you to compromise your moral standing further. I've canceled the interview and reported them to the EPA." I slid down the door sobbing. He wasn't saving me from sin. He was burying me alive. That afternoon, he unlocked the door to let me use the bathroom, timed 3 minutes. As I walked past his room, I saw his whiteboard. It was a timeline. Phase 1, rehabilitation. Phase 2, asset seizure due to mental incompetence. Phase 3, institutionalization. He was planning to have me declared mentally unfit. He was documenting my emotional outbursts, my crying, my paranoia, my fear of him, and my financial irresponsibility, the tax error he reported. He was going to lock me away and take the house, the one thing I had left, to use as his base of operations for his crusade of justice. I went back to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, and stopped crying. The fear evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. Ethan loved the law. He loved rules. He believed that paperwork defined reality. I reached under my mattress and pulled out a small, rusty metal box I had hidden there years ago. Inside wasn't money or jewelry. It was a lack of things. No birth certificate. No adoption decree. No court order. Just a faded Polaroid of a dirty, 3-year-old boy sitting under a bridge, wrapped in a blanket I had taken from my car trunk. If he wanted to play by the rules, I would show him the ultimate rule. I needed a lawyer, but I had no money. I waited until Ethan went out on his daily patrol of the neighborhood. He walked the streets with a ruler and a notepad, measuring grass height to report HOA violations. I climbed out the back window. I ran 3 miles to the downtown legal aid clinic. My brother, David, wouldn't answer my calls, and I didn't blame him. I was alone. I sat across from a weary public defender named Mr. Henderson. I told him everything. The tyranny, the frozen accounts, the impending institutionalization. "Ms. Miller," Henderson sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's a civil matter. If his name is on the account, he can freeze it. If he lives there, you have to evict him legally. It takes months." "He doesn't live there legally," I said. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath. "I found him under the Burnside Bridge 15 years ago. He was abandoned. No ID, no parents. I took him home. I intended to call CPS, but he was so small. And I was so lonely. Days turned into weeks. I forged a birth certificate to get him into school. I never filed for adoption. I never went to court." Henderson stopped writing. The room went dead silent. He looked at me over his glasses. "You kidnapped a child?" "I saved a child." I snapped. "And now that child is holding me hostage in my own home. I need to know the law. Does he have rights? Is he my son?" Henderson leaned back, a look of shock and dark fascination on his face. "If there is no adoption paperwork, and no biological relation, legally, Ms. Miller, he is a stranger. A stranger who has been trespassing in your home for 15 years. And the forgery? Statute of limitations on the forgery might be tricky, but given you saved him from abandonment, the courts might be lenient on you. But him? If he's 18, he's a legal adult. Without a lease, without a biological tie, without a guardianship order. He has no standing. None." Henderson smiled, a shark-like grin. "You say this kid likes rules? He lives for them. Then let's introduce him to the concept of fruit of the poisonous tree. His entire existence in your house is a violation of the property code." I returned home before Ethan returned. I unlocked the front door and waited. When he walked in, he was glowing. "I found 6 violations today. The Johnsons have an unauthorized bird feeder. I've already drafted the complaint." He stopped. He saw me sitting in the living room, drinking tea from the mug he had thrown in the trash. I had dug it out. "That item was disposed of," he said, his voice dropping an octave. "You are violating the sanitation protocol." "Sit down, Ethan," I said. He blinked. He wasn't used to orders. "I am preparing dinner. Boiled chicken and kale. It is efficient." I said sit down. I didn't yell. I spoke with the authority of a judge delivering a death sentence. He paused, sensing a shift in the atmosphere, and sat on the edge of the sofa, stiff and alert. "I called the police," I said. "Good," he nodded. I was going to suggest we turn you in for the forgery of the sick note you wrote for me in 3rd grade. I found the draft. Truth is absolute, Mom. They aren't coming for me, Ethan. The sirens wailed in the distance. Blue and red lights washed over the living room walls, just like the day he had me arrested. But this time, I didn't tremble. The door burst open. It wasn't just patrol officers. It was a sheriff's deputy and a social worker, accompanied by Mr. Henderson. Ethan Miller? The deputy asked. Yes, Ethan stood up, smoothing his shirt. If you are here for her surrender, I have the files ready. We're here for you, son, the deputy said. We have a report of a squatter on the premises. An adult male with no lease, no relation to the homeowner, refusing to vacate. Ethan laughed. It was a dry robotic sound. Squatter? I am her son. I am the head of this household's compliance division. Show me your birth certificate, I said softly. Ethan turned to me, his eyes narrowing. It is in the safe. You know this. Open it. He walked to the wall safe, punched in the code, and retrieved the document. He handed it to the deputy with a sneer. Official documentation. The deputy looked at it, then at Mr. Henderson. Henderson pulled a UV light and a magnifying glass from his bag. He shone it on the paper. This is printed on 24-pound bond paper from a home inkjet, Henderson said. State certificates use watermarked linen security paper. This is a forgery. Ethan froze. That is irrelevant. I have lived here for 15 years. Common law does not apply to parent-child relationships, Henderson cut in. Ms. Miller, is this your biological son? No, I said. Did you adopt him? No. Ethan. I stood up, my legs shaking but my voice steady. I found you under a bridge. I took you in. I loved you. I fed you. But you are not my son. Not legally. And since you value the law above all else, the law says you are a stranger in my house. Ethan looked at the paper in his hand. His hands began to tremble. This is illogical. I have memories. We are a family unit. Family. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You told me justice doesn't take a day off. You told me you would choose the rules over family. Well, here is the rule, Ethan. Trespassers will be prosecuted. I pointed to the door. Get out. You can't, Ethan stammered. The fanatical light in his eyes flickered, replaced by the terror of a child lost in the dark. Article 4. The bylaws. There are no bylaws. I screamed. There is only my house. And you don't belong in it. The deputy stepped forward. Sir, the homeowner has revoked your permission to stay. You need to leave. Now. But my systems, Ethan whispered, looking at his computer, his files, his label maker. My work. It's all clutter, I said cold-heartedly. And according to your rules, clutter must be disposed of. Ethan was escorted out of the house with nothing but the clothes on his back. He tried to cite the Tenancy Act, but without a rental agreement or proof of rent paid. And with the revelation of his fraudulent identity, the police viewed him as a con artist who had taken advantage of a lonely woman. Because I confessed to the forgery under duress of his abuse, and because I was the one who turned myself in, the district attorney declined to press charges against me. They saw me as a victim of a sociopathic parasite. But the story didn't end there. Ethan was thrust into the system he worshipped. But the system is not a computer program. It is messy, human, and flawed. He was placed in a men's shelter while the state tried to figure out who he really was. I heard from a contact at social services about his first week. On his first night, he reported a fellow homeless man for possessing contraband, a bottle of vodka. The man beat Ethan unconscious. When Ethan woke up in the hospital, he tried to report the doctors for not following proper triage protocol. He was discharged early for being belligerent. He tried to get a job, but he had no legal ID. The birth certificate was fake. He didn't exist. For a boy who believed that paperwork was God, finding out he was a blank page drove him to the brink of madness. 3 years passed. I rebuilt my life. I got my job back. My boss realized the absurdity of the situation after the police report came out. I reconciled with my brother, David. We had Sunday dinners again. I didn't sell the house. I purged it. I threw away the bylaws. I bought a messy, shedding golden retriever named Barnaby, who drooled on the floor. It was glorious chaos. One rainy Tuesday, I saw him. I was waiting for the bus. He was standing on the opposite corner, wearing a neon vest, holding a sign for a car wash. He looked older, gaunt. The arrogance was gone from his posture. He wasn't standing at attention. He was slumped against the pole. I almost didn't approach him. But a mother's heart is a traitorous thing, even when that mother isn't on the birth certificate. I crossed the street. Ethan. He looked up. His glasses were taped at the bridge. His eyes were dull. Ms. Miller, he said. Not Mom. How are you? I am compliant, he said automatically. Then he paused. He looked at the rain washing down the gutter. The world is inefficient. Yes, I said. It is. I tried to join the police force, he said quietly. They wouldn't take me. No background. I tried to be a building inspector. No degree. You need to live, Ethan. Not just regulate. He looked at me, and for the first time in his life, I saw a tear cut through the grime on his cheek. I reported a man last week, he whispered. He stole a loaf of bread. The police came. They took him away. His daughter was crying. He looked at his hands. I felt bad. That is a violation of objective neutrality. But I felt bad. That's called humanity, Ethan, I said gently. It's the one rule you never learned. He shivered in the cold. I missed the schedule. I missed the bylaws. The bylaws destroyed us, I said firmly. I reached into my purse and pulled out a $20 bill. I held it out. He stared at it. I haven't earned this. Accepting it would be a violation of tax code regarding gift income if it exceeds. Take the damn money, Ethan, I said. It's not a transaction. It's grace. Grace doesn't follow rules. He hesitated. His hand shook as he reached out. He took the bill. He didn't cite a statute. He didn't ask for a receipt. Thank you, he whispered. Goodbye, Ethan. I walked away. I didn't look back. I knew I couldn't save him. He had to learn to survive in the gray areas of life, the messy, unregulated spaces where love and forgiveness live. I got on the bus and watched him through the window. He was standing there, clutching the $20, watching a jaywalker run across the street. His instinct was to yell. I saw his mouth open, but then he closed it. He looked at the money in his hand. He turned around and walked toward a sandwich shop. He broke a rule. He let the jaywalker go. It was the first just thing he had ever done.